This is the biggest disruption we've seen to education on our island in its history. What we found was that teachers stepped up to the mark, pupils stepped up, particularly parents had to step up and become home educators almost overnight. And the quality and quantity of work and support that was given them seemed to differ. What we want to do as a department now is work with parents, work with teachers, work with schools to build a far more resilient service in the future. So if we're ever in this situation again, we can react far better. But also for those people who may not be able to get to school for whatever reason, whether it's illness or exclusion, that we can support them through distance learning in a much better and efficient way.
So this is targeted at parents but also pupils. It's being done through the government's consultation hub. Is that necessarily the best way to get to pupils?
What's happened over the last couple of weeks is various schools have been doing their own surveys of their school community. Last week we surveyed all teachers before the schools closed for their ideas, and we've got a working group set up with teachers. But we wanted to get the attitudes and opinions of pupils and of parents in a completely anonymous way. And unfortunately, I think some parents don't want to necessarily complain about their school or feel a little bit inhibited from pointing out what happened, really well, what happened not so well. And by doing it anonymously through the government portal, I hope we can get a slightly different perspective on this, as well as use the perspectives already gathered by schools as well to come forward with a coherent policy for the education service right across our island.
And you talk about finding areas that need improvement, about expanding it out to illness and exclusion. This isn't going to be free. Is there a budget in place for this?
There is indeed. What we've done with the Education Improvement Services work really closely with schools right the way through, particularly this period, to look at what resources we've got. There are online resources like It's Learning, like Google Classrooms, like Microsoft Teams that have been used and provided to all schools. Now what we need to do is find out which works for which school in the best way. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Obviously the needs of primary schools might be very different to secondary schools. But by having a really cemented policy and also minimum expectations for parents, I think will be really important as we move forward and as we face what may be further disruptions over the coming weeks and months.
So what is the budget for this?
The budget is contained at the moment within the total education budget. We've got an IT budget, but we've also worked very, very closely with GTS in terms of the hardware. And during the summer, we're going to be making further announcements about extra money that's going in to provide facilities for those people who may not have access to the internet.
So there isn't a set figure put aside for this at the moment?
No, we have a range of different budgets. Some are actually with the software suppliers, some are with the hardware suppliers, but a lot of are also in terms of the educationalists who can go out and talk to teachers, talk to schools about what might suit them. But also part of this entire bit of work we're doing over the summer is to look at some of the excellent systems that were set up by teachers themselves and trying to share those with their colleagues in other schools.
So the timeline for this, the consultation is going to be open until the 10th of August. What happens after that?
Well, after the 10th of August, we're going to be putting the results of this consultation together with those of the teachers. We're going to be looking at what schools have done already themselves to assess the attitudes and experiences of their own school communities, and then using a working group which has got some of the people from the department, but also some of the head teachers and those teachers who are involved in IT and distance learning in the schools together so we can have a common approach to this and actually get some benchmarked best examples we can then roll out right across our education service on the island.